Sarah, obviously the topic is talking about short form video. And I know this is something that you're obviously great at, but I want to say relatively new at too, over the past couple of
Mhm.
years. So I'm glad to have this chat with you because often when you're getting advice from an expert, they like blew up years ago and the tactics they have aren't really useful anymore. It's like, oh yeah, get on Vine and do this stuff. So it's always better to have someone a bit more relevant who's finding success as opposed to someone who had this platform and then just moved to another one with these videos. So glad to have you here. Let's take a quick poll of the audience. Yes or no, have you created any kind of short form video in the last, let's say, month or so for social media? Yes or no, have you created any kind of short form media on social media, most likely, in the last month? See what we got here. We got Amanda from Nashville. So Amanda, thanks for joining here. Megan, what's up? We got Megan from Brooklyn. Glad to see you. And we're waiting for responses here. Yes or no? Have you created content recently? Rachel's saying StreamYard is having a hiccup where people are showing up as a LinkedIn user. I thought people were just being anonymous. I was waiting for trolls named LinkedIn user to start bashing us. So thanks for telling me that. I don't feel like it's a challenging situation. So
That's always a risk.
Michelle's,
Polls are always a risk.
yeah, you got to go with it. Stuart hasn't made any content recently. Megan
Mhm.
hasn't. Michael has. That's awesome. Amanda has as well. Denise has too. Hey, listen, if you want, you can share links to the content you've created in this same thread. That way we can all go look back later and see some examples because it's not just about us, obviously. But I
Mm.
do want to get started here. And the goal of today is to talk about how you can create short form video, even if you're not good at it, even if you're not good at being on camera. And for someone like me, I lean towards being introverted. So when
Mhm.
I first started creating video content, it was challenging because I just wanted to be done with it. I was speaking too quickly and mumbling, which is just the worst combination ever. And I eventually somewhat got the hang of it. It's something I'm still working on, but I feel strongly that if you can't create short form video, especially as a knowledge based expert, you are at an extreme disadvantage. And my most recent article for Norby, which is linked on my most recent comment, I was talking about how you can get paid as a content creator by creating short form content for brands that is educational. So that's also known as nano learning. And if you can master that, first of all, you can educate your audience, but you can also get paid content deals, which is a lot of fun. So we really want to get good at this. And I can't give you too many details, but I know LinkedIn's launching some new features that will rely on video as well as some other mediums to help give you new ways to interact with your audience. So I'm going to be in the beta testing group for that. So I probably can't say too much about it right now, but stay on the lookout for that too. So now's a good time for us to get used to this stuff and just know how to master LinkedIn, or sorry, master short form video. But Sarah, let's move over to you. Do you mind just introducing yourself, just giving us an idea of your background and what you're up to these days?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So, I've been a graphic designer and part of marketing teams for many years. And about a year ago, I finally went out fully on my own. And so I still continue to work with a lot of startups with my one-to-one services. But also this year, I launched the Brand to Blow Up program, which is a course coaching program where I work with small businesses and I help them with their social media as well. And I love what you said about me being relatively new to the short form video, game. I love that because I feel like I'm just a learner of it as much as anyone else is. And I've definitely learned a lot after, about a year of being on TikTok and about 6 months of like heavily researching and just trying and failing and learning. So I think I have a lot of tips. And I think you're right that I can speak to people who aren't, people who have been doing this for a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, you make a good point that you should be experimenting, right? Otherwise, you're going to bore everyone, including yourself. And one fun experiment I did about 2 weeks ago is I made a bunch of short form videos for LinkedIn, but I was just reading my old content from previous posts. And it's funny because, first of all, it took me literally 2 minutes to create all these videos, but no one really noticed or cared to mention the fact that I was just reading stuff I'd mentioned like a month or two ago. So
Mm-hmm.
you always want to be experimenting and seeing what hits because otherwise, you can't learn anything new. But one thing that we just want to address initially is some people have a fear of being on video, and I
Mhm.
get it; it's real. I used to be there as well. So I'm wondering, on your end, did you ever have this fear of being on video? How did you get over it, and what tips would you give to anyone else who's afraid of being on video? And before you answer, quick poll, yes or no: is anyone here just a bit reserved about being on video? You'd rather not do it, just so we can see, by show of hands, who's kind of leaning towards not wanting to do it, and then Sarah can go ahead and help you out. But yeah, Sarah, go ahead. You can.
Sure.
It's going to take a while for the comments to come in. So yeah, go ahead.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. So, like you, I am definitely more introverted. And I think everything's scary when it's new. And especially putting yourself out there is always going to be scary. I think the really good thing about video is that you could take as many takes as you want and they never have to see the light of day. So, I think that can relieve some of the pressure. I never record, straight onto TikTok. I'm always recording 8 million things on my camera roll and then taking the best things and putting them on my actual, platform. So what I think people need to know about being on video is not that you have to be this outgoing person, but I think we all kind of have access to different parts of ourselves. I think we all have an awkward version of ourselves and we all have a charming version of ourselves. And it's all about just accessing that charming version of yourself or whatever you're going for, whatever vibe you're going for on your channel. Sometimes it's just, it can be dorky, it can be whatever it is. You're gonna find your people who resonate with that. But it's just accessing that kind of higher energy part of yourself and capturing that. And some days I don't have it in me, so I don't do it on those days. Those might be the days that I edit in my pajamas on the couch for a couple hours instead of being on camera. The days when I feel really, a little bit more high energy, that's the day when I try to film most of my videos. And I think you are dead right about reading your old content. I just wanted to comment on that. One, I think it's better when you are an actor when you're filming, right? Like, don't try to think of your points as you're filming them. Think of your points ahead of time. And even if you're filming one sentence at a time to get it so it's clear and concise, do that. Splice it up later. There's a ton of leeway to just cut things up. Things can be choppy, it doesn't matter. It's better to be concise and know what you're going to say ahead of time and just be an actor. Right when you click that camera, that's when you turn it on and you just go, and that's when you say it. That's when you get animated. And then as soon as you're done, you can just be dead in the eyes, lay down, do whatever you want. So, and the other thing is, any content you have, the goal is volume in this new world of content. It is experimenting. It doesn't have to be perfect. I've been saying recently, be prolific, not perfect. And also, if you have any content that hits home, do that content multiple times in multiple different ways because you don't know which way is going to resonate with people. And use and abuse your content. Don't assume people have seen it. Always assume it's hitting a new audience. You can post one video on TikTok and it doesn't do very well. You can repurpose that same video and it takes off. You have no idea.
There's so many great takeaways you're providing right now, and luckily Megan, my assistant, is taking notes. So for anyone listening who could not keep up with that, the show notes will be available on my website and on YouTube afterwards. Because as someone who's conducting this interview, I'm trying to bookmark everything. Like, what should I talk about? I'm like, that was a lot of cool stuff. So, so hard for me to repeat all of it. But one thing that really stood out to you is just basically being authentic. And I think sometimes when people are on video, they're like, I should act like this or I should act like that. If I act too energetic, it's gonna scare people, especially people that know me well. And my niece called me out. Hey, Uncle Terry, like when you're on your videos, you seem a little bit more friendlier than you are in person. And I'm turning it up a little bit, but I'm not going over the top. I love the idea of having a plan of what you're going to say with your content because I do some ad hoc stuff, and that's normally going to be like an Instagram story. But
Mhm.
what I'll do sometimes is I'll do ad hoc, but then I have to do it 3 or 4 times, and then I can remember it to deliver it concisely. So that's
Mhm.
another takeaway. But also, the fun thing about short form video is you don't have to have a continuous shot where you sound smart for like a minute. And that's the problem that I have sometimes when I'm working with videographers. They're like, hey, Terry, can you say this for a minute? Just read this teleprompter. I'm like, it's going to be obvious that I'm reading off a teleprompter because you see my eyes moving and I sound like a robot. But if you can just put in some B roll, meaning just background video while you're talking, and or just cut it and jump to the next frame. People are more used to that these days, and you can get
Mhm.
away with it. And I'm seeing some feedback here in the audience. Lisa would rather eat her eyelashes than create video. So, Lisa, by the end of this session, I just want you to not want to eat your eyelashes and try it. Rochelle's saying, she doesn't have any reservations. She got over having to look younger, skinnier, etc. So I'm glad to hear that, because the best version of yourself is all you need to be, and that's by your definition.
Mhm.
So glad to hear that. And then Monica's saying, even if people see your content on multiple platforms, it might not click with them automatically, and therefore it's okay to repeat it. And what I would also say is, people sometimes don't need new information. They need a reminder of the same information to take action. So
Mhm.
it's okay either way to repeat your content, and that way you don't have to worry about producing as
Mhm. I saw this quote, I can't remember to credit it, but someone said, creating great content and only using it once is like buying a great outfit and only wearing it once. You should reuse your content. You put so much time and energy into it, and only whoever sees it at that time is going to see it. No, like use it again and do it in different ways.
I love that thought. It reminds me, when I was in high school, I bought this like bright red Tommy Hilfiger shirt. And this is back when Hilfiger was like the hit, like in the late 90s. And I wore it once and everyone was like, oh, that's awesome. So I was afraid to wear it again because I would be that guy. And then by the time I was going to wear it again, it went out of style. So yeah, I mean, if something hits, let it keep on hitting, because repurposing content is one of the best ways to get more content, right? Just use the same stuff
Mhm.
over and over again, change the captions, change the takeaway, whatever it is. But we're kind of leaning towards saying, actually, let me grab this question. Um, Even if you get over the fear of video, what about finding the time to do it? And we're both parents, so that can be a challenge. So how can you set yourself up for success, Sarah, just in regards to finding the time to create content?
I love this because what I always talk about, there's a lot of like, especially with TikTok being about volume, I think there's a lot of gurus who will say you have to post 6 times a day on LinkedIn. And I personally can't do that. And I don't think that's sustainable for a lot of people. So what I tell people is to focus on whatever is sustainable for you. And things that can make you more efficient always help. That's why I say reuse your content, but also, focus on one platform first. For me, I focus on TikTok, then maybe I repurpose some of those and I put them on Instagram, the ones I think will do well on Instagram. I take the slides that make up some of my videos and I put those on Pinterest. Some things I use on LinkedIn as well. But, focusing on one platform first and just trying to win there and then trickle things somewhere else, that's another strategy. And also, like, creating a setup so you're not like pulling out a whole studio every time that you need to make a video. That's going to be too much. If you can create just one area, it doesn't, I know the rest of your house can be a mess, but if you have like one corner where that's video ready. So for me, I bought this backdrop. Behind this backdrop is the back of my husband's head. It didn't look cute in any of my videos. This ended up looking way more professional, right? So I have one clip on light. I got it on Amazon. It was like $11, so it doesn't have to be crazy. A lot of my best lighting, my best videos are in front of a window, but just making sure you have something so that if an idea does strike and you want to take that moment to record, you can do it. And also for me, not everyone can do this, but I got a content creation phone. Here's another thing, like make it as easy as possible for yourself to do, and prioritize it and just try to squeeze it into your life and whatever makes sense for you. Like for me, I was constantly filling up my regular phone with videos. It was like videos of my kid and then videos of me talking, and you're trying to make a video and scroll to find your B-roll in between all your family photos, and you're constantly having to free up more storage. So for me, just having one phone, I got like a Google Pixel, like an older version. And I love having just a phone that's dedicated only to all of the content that I'm creating, because I've got all of my, cover images on there. I've only got the apps I need for editing, and that's it. And the storage is always available. And I've got 8 million takes on there. And so just anything that can make it easier and more sustainable. And then one more tip I'll say is try habit stacking. Since social media is a consistency and a long-term play and a slow build of real engagement, something I like to do is, pair engaging with people with something that I already like doing. So it's like 10 minutes a day when you have your coffee, or some other thing that you're going to do every day or that you are going to do all the time. Pair it with something you like so you can continue to do it over time, things like that.
There's so many notes. There's so many takeaways. One thing that I've never heard before is having a content phone, and I think that's brilliant because I have the same issue, right? So it's like I'm making content on my phone, and oh, I'm out of space. Do I delete my kids playing soccer, or so I can keep creating content, or what's the trade off?
No.
So I love that. And one thing that I also do is the content that I shoot on my phone, I automatically upload that to Dropbox. And that way
Mhm.
I have access to it whether my desktop editing or if I want to bring it into a different platform. But I just love that idea of doing so. Also, you said the backdrop. I mean, mine is it's good enough, right? It's like Brooklyn and books,
Mhm.
right? But just have something because it's beneficial to just be able to just set your stuff up and just go. But when I have to create more robust videos, I'm getting out all these fancy lights and like my teleprompter and all this stuff. I'm like, gosh, that's a half an hour there. But when I'm making short form video, I'm just here standing at my desk. I can bang out like 20 or so in less than an hour because of that. So
Mhm.
it goes back to that habit stacking, like remove the barrier to success by just making it so easy to move forward. And Shelby's chiming in on here too. Lisa's agreeing that content phone idea is great. And then Rachel, Rachel saying the same thing. She teaches financial coaching, and habit bundling is another one that she uses. So Shelby's going to start using her old phone for content. I know Shelby has kids too, so she doesn't want to delete them either. So I love this. But so all right, we're over our fear of creating content. Lisa's not gonna cut her eyebrows out, and we have our backdrop set up. We know more or less how to do this, but where do you get ideas for content? Because what I see in your content is something that I try to do is I'm giving advice to the person I was 5 years ago. And that's why it's relatively easy because I'm like, what would I want to know to grow my business? And you're just spitting facts, right? So on your end, where are you getting your ideas
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things that I see all the time is that people will just sort of create content and whatever comes to mind, and I think you definitely do need to have a unified theme, but I don't think it has to be so constricting that you're just completely boxing yourself in. So one thing that I like to do is I have four kind of core pillars that I go by, and that's entrepreneurship, design, marketing, and mindset. And there's a lot that can fall within all of those, but they still kind of relate. But the other thing I do is I do try to keep in mind kind of my target person, which now is, small business owners, particularly e-commerce business owners. But also I know, people follow me for sort of entrepreneurship inspiration. So you also need to know kind of what content people are, that's resonating with people. And I see people all the time sort of speak to the other people in their industry. So, for example, I'll see designers that only make content that's for other designers. And I think that's great, but I don't think they're getting anywhere with that. Like, they're not meeting other customers with that. So, I think it is really important to understand who you're talking to. Otherwise, you're just getting a bunch of other people who are in your industry supporting you, and that's lovely, but that's not going to get you any sales or new clients or anything like that. So, I talk to people a lot about creating content that's building the community that they want to build, attracting the people they're trying to attract, and ultimately eventually leading to sales. And so there is a lot of thought that needs to go into those things. But I think you're smart to be thinking of like answering the questions that people are going to be asking, who are your target people. And also I think one of the things is, you're gonna need to have a topic that you could just talk for hours and hours about and that you're excited about, right? Because I think we can all be reserved in things that we don't really care about, and we can all be really animated and really excited about other things. Like those are the things you need to pick to talk about, the things that kind of light you up that you could talk to your friends about for hours. That's the only way you're not going to run out of ideas.
Yeah, I love that. And I think one thing that I was corrected on during our last episode, which Anna Batune, who's a personal brand strategist, was on, and she's saying like, "Hey, it's great you're using like all this you content. Like, here's how you can do this. Here's how you can do that. But you also want to do I content. I was doing this. I was doing that. Here's how I learned about that." And I went back and I looked at some of my data from my posts using Shield Analytics, which is a tool that helps you measure the success of your LinkedIn posts. And I realized when I was talking about myself, like all the shady clients I had or bad experiences, those often got a lot more engagement than me just preaching, saying, "Hey, random person, here's how to live your life." So I think that's
Mhm.
important. And what also surprised me is this lately I've been posting some of my workouts. I'm like, "Hey, I'm at the gym. Whoops, failed that rep. Here's a business lesson. Try again," right?
Mm.
And that's been taking off too. And now people are saying, "Well, how do you have 4 children, and run a business and have time to work out?" So that's like another lane I can talk about, which is efficiency. And I don't like the term work-life balance, but integration as well. But
Mhm.
you'll never find those additional pockets if you don't explore other forms of content. And Shelby's kind of chiming in here. She's saying, "I always feel a little boxed in when I hear people say find your niche," because Sarah, to your point, you're just talking to the same people, like patting each other on the back, having this echo chamber, but you're not expanding your circle whatsoever.
Mhm.
So we got a great question here from Rachel here. She's just saying, "Hey, like, what's the best way to start?" Right. So we got all this great information. We got our lights right. We got our special phone. We got some ideas, but how do you actually hit record and get started?
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's gonna like this answer, but the best way to start is to just start and to be cringy. That's the best advice I can give people because I 100% did that a year ago. And I tried all it again, you have to view it as one big experiment. You can't get too hung up on the initial views or anything like that. And yeah, I think finding your niche a lot of times is something a lot of people find retrospectively, and then it makes sense, right? Like they go, oh, I talk about this, but they learned that because they posted 50 videos and found their way into this niche, and then it made sense. They didn't know it going forward. And so I've posted videos where I'm not talking and I'm just pointing to the words on the screen, and I tried different videos where I'm speaking in different settings or I'm talking about different things. And I've talked about things in different ways where one, I'm just giving you the information straight. And then in another one, I've wrapped it in a narrative. And that's the only way to start. There doesn't have to be, I think back when everything was on Instagram, there was a lot of this focus on your profile grid. And so it was all curated, and you're ready for anyone to look at your grid at any time and kind of assess you based on all of your content. And that's just not the way it is anymore. Oftentimes now it's going to be one person seeing your video kind of in a vacuum, and they don't know any of your context. And so all you want to focus on each video is how can I hook somebody into this video first and foremost and make this an interesting video. And again, just view it all as an experiment and just go, okay, like that's more data for me.
I want to get back to the hooks point in a moment, but Stuart asked a great question. He's saying, "Look, I'm way behind you on this. Are you gonna go over how to actually create a video?" I love you being blunt on this. Like, hey man, like how the heck do you create a video? Stuart, I'm gonna walk through my process, and then Sarah, if you want to share yours, which I'm sure is gonna be different, I think you'll get some good information. My process for creating a video typically has some kind of script, and if it's a 1 minute video, I don't want to go over 150 words because normally people speak about 150 words per minute. I'm much faster than that, so it helps me throttle down to not speak too quickly. So that's step one. We can talk about like hooks and structure after this, but aesthetically, I then grab my camera and I'm going to have some kind of stand on my desk to start recording. And I'm recording knowing that the first time I say it probably ain't gonna work out too well. The second time probably not too well. By the third time I got it, and I now have this, on my phone. But it also goes deeper than that. Again, I'm not trying to get one continuous video of me saying, here's, how I played football at Webster High School. It's like, it's going to be like choppy. And when I'm in the editing phase, so we'll call that post production, I upload all these videos to a tool called the script. It's just DES script, or DE script, right? You can spell script. Um, so that's what it is. And the benefit of this is you can literally just like transcribe everything you've said and just like cut and say, okay, give me this part of the video, give me that part of the video, give me that part of the video. And then from there, hover over everything, add subtitles, and then add a title on it, and you're done. You just download it and you're good to go. And then to be more descriptive, I will download that to Dropbox, and therefore, when I'm ready to upload on LinkedIn or whatever platform, it goes directly from Dropbox onto the platform. So it's never actually on my device, taking up a lot of space. So from A to Z, that's my process. And again, there's other tools you can use for the editing part. Adobe Rush, just Adobe Rush, is a free mobile app you can use to do pretty much the same thing or very similar. I like desktop because I'm old, but if you just want to do it on your phone, you can do that. And then obviously each individual platform, such as TikTok or Instagram, there's other ways to do it. So Sarah, I'm sure you do it a much cooler way than I do. I'm going to stop talking. And actually, real quick, Shelby's saying, how do we avoid recording it again and again? I'm always so critical, and sometimes I spend too long trying to get it right. Don't try to get it right. Honestly, I mean, done is better than perfect. And I think authentic content, you mess up a little bit, right? And that's what happens. And that's the benefit of stitching together. Maybe it's 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there. It can just jump to the next frame. And some of that's gonna sound good, but there's been times when I'm mumbling to the point where it can't even get transcribed properly. Like tools like, dude, I don't even know, like, like, are you eating right now? So I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah, I totally agree that done is better than perfect. Maybe even instead of looking for the perfect take, you're just like, I'm taking the best take. Maybe that's it. But like I said, sometimes it's even line by line for me. If I'm struggling, then I just have to look at the line I need to say and then look at the camera and then say, this is how your Shopify site should look, and I can say one sentence, hopefully. So sometimes I do that. And to go through my process, I don't really use a tool as cool as Descript, but I keep it as simple as I can. I wish I could say it was like really, really organized, but I think sometimes inspiration strikes me in different ways. So some weeks I can batch and I can just do it all in one day. And other weeks it's like I just have like I can do a little bit every day. And I can't say I stick to one or the other. Sometimes it just flip-flops. And then there are days when I have lots of ideas and I put them in a document that I have where I have each of my pillars, and I just put ideas, or I will copy links to other TikTok videos that I'm like, oh, this format, I'm going to try it in this way. I think that's a really good other way to get started, is looking at other videos and saying, how can I apply this to me? And it's going to be different. It's going to be different than how they did it. So it's a good way to start. And then on the day when I'm feeling more presentable or I have the time, I'll pull up my document of ideas, I'll look at them, and then it's really, really just as simple as I've got my backdrop behind me, I've got a window for good lighting. I don't even have a phone stand. I like hold it up in front of me, and I basically go through and I just record myself speaking each part in order. And if I mess up the take, then I stop and I re-record it, or I record it in the same clip. And then when I go and I bring things into my editing app, which is all on the same phone, and I use InShot, InShot, which is free. And then because it's all in order, it makes the editing pretty easy. I just go through, pull in all the clips, and then cut out any of the dead space in between each line, and cut out, the ones where I messed up, so that I've just got the best takes. And it's funny, Terry, that you think you talk too fast, because everything on TikTok is so fast that I'm advising, my small business owners, I'm like, shorten it. And then when you think it's short enough, shorten it again, because the attention span is so small. And if you take too long to get to the point, people will just swipe away. So I even sometimes will, cut it so it starts like I'm mid-word, or I cut it at the end before I finish a word. So you feel like you just stumbled across like mid conversation with me. And sometimes I'll even you can do a slight increase in speed to where it doesn't really distort my voice, but I'm speaking a little bit faster. And sometimes I find that I think works better than just the normal speaking pace that we do in conversations. TikTok's a different world than that. So I think sometimes being fast is a good thing.
Well, thanks, because for me, I'm constantly trying to throttle it back. I didn't know, or I've never tried this, actually speeding up my voice before. But that makes sense too, because if you have constraints, it has to be a minute or whatever. You gotta get in there some way, and that way you don't have to actually edit. I see Almira chiming in here. By the way, if you see Almira in here, please do follow her. She's actually the head of nano learning at LinkedIn Learns. So nano learning was the topic of the article that I talked about before, which Almira was nice enough to contribute for. And essentially, it's delivering short form educational content via video in a condensed form. And again, if you don't know how to do this, I think you're going to be in trouble in the future, and it's going to be an advantage right now. But she's saying, hey, getting started was so hard for me. Finally, I just hit post, didn't delete, and started thinking of it as an experiment. So on your end, Almira, like I applaud you for not deleting, because I used to be that guy, like within 4 seconds, if I don't get 8 likes, it's done, it's garbage. Um, but first of all, it takes time for algorithms and humans to watch content and review it. And also, the views always go up; they never go down. So that's super important. Another thing, Sarah, that you mentioned again, super important. Like, just get comfortable playing around with editing, because years ago you had to pay someone hundreds or thousands of dollars to do something you can do on your phone right now. Right. So just spend half an hour getting used to using InShot, the script, Adobe Rush, whatever it is. You'll be amazed at how easy it is. And then it gets fun, because I even like edit photos and videos of my kids together just for, whatever, doing dad stuff. And they have fun with it as well. So I think you have to kind of get over that reservation to an extent. And then from there, you can have a lot of fun with it. But we're getting a lot of questions here. I'm going to grab this one from Rachel, then Sarah. The first one is, that's how you show questions? I just learned how to use it. All right. So the first question is, where do you find you post the most? Where are you putting the majority of your content?
Mostly TikTok. That's where I'm posting the most. That's kind of the platform I'm prioritizing.
Cool. Awesome. Next up, this is so cool. You just push a button. Is there an optimal time for short form content? 1 minute, 3 minutes? What would you say?
I'd say generally less than a minute. Unless you're just telling a really juicy story, then people will watch up to 3 minutes of a really good story. But I think if you're doing more educational content, I think bite-sized is best.
Cool. And there's a question about, how do you spell Almira's name? There you go. It's ALMEERAJIWAPRATT. So yeah, please do follow her. She's just leading the trends in the industry in regards to creating this short form educational content. So check her out. A great tip in regards to editing social video as well, from Megan, who's my wonderful executive assistant. Splice is another app for video editing that's super user friendly. So there you go. Cool. So I think that's all the questions for right now. All right. So we're going to, how do I get this question down? So we had a lot of great questions here, and we're getting some, some great advice from you too. But what are some avoidable mistakes that are common that you can just help people avoid from what you've observed?
That's a good question. I think definitely the one I mentioned earlier of not knowing who you're speaking to. That one is a big one, and being a little, like I said, I think you don't have to stick to just one topic, but I think being inconsistent and being kind of like fashion one day and then lifestyle and makeup, and then the next day your business. I think that kind of, people need to be able to know what you're about pretty quickly. It needs to be simple enough that they could just say you're the expert on blank to someone else. And they need to know that if they're seeing one video of you that has something in it that they like, that resonates with them, when they go to your page, they need to see other videos that have that too. That's what creates a follow. And let's see, like I said, I think just making things too long, taking too long to get to the point, only doing trends. I think if you go in and you just do the same trends that everyone else is doing, then that content is a waste of your time. Honestly, that's what I think. Not to say that you could never do any trends, but you have to tweak it so it makes sense to what you're talking about. And I say focus, like cut out all the noise and focus more on creating evergreen content, creating content that if you were to die tomorrow, you'd be proud it was there. You think it provides value to people, and it represents you well. I think if you just try to focus on creating good content like that, then you don't need to worry about the trends.
That's so much pressure. Like, but
But then also
but
have
we
fun with it and experiment. I totally understand. Like, be
yeah.
cringy too. I get it. But that's the thing. If you create 100 videos, some of those are going to be golden nuggets, and you're going to go, "Wow, that one was really good. Let me pin that one."
Yeah, that's a good point. And Jessica's saying, is there certain kind of content that works better for short form video? And I'll kind of jump in and piggyback. I think any content can work well, but you have to pre-qualify why someone cares. And again, this is coming from Elmira. Like, what is this? Why should I care? And then what should I do? So even starting your content with a question, do you want to learn how to get more followers on LinkedIn? Here's 3 easy ways to do it. Okay, cool, I got it. But if you just start off saying, LinkedIn's a wonderful platform, the average person only signs in once a month. But if you want to get really, it's like, you lost everyone. But if you like just get to it, the point, hell, I'll watch a 20-minute video about that if it needs to be that long. But if you don't pre-qualify my interest automatically, then it's not going to happen. And I think people, what we call in journalism, bury the lead way too often, where they have great content. And this happened when I was working at Facebook too. We'd have advertisers where, I remember one time this video started with like an airplane coming in and landing, and then doors opening, and then like a red carpet rolling out. And you're probably all bored of the story already. So was I. But it was for some kind of financial service company. And I'm like, what is all this other stuff? Like, oh, it's the buildup. I'm like, nobody cares, dude. Like, no one cares at all. And it's a jaded approach. But if you assume nobody cares until you give them a reason to, first of all, it'll force you to give them a reason, but you'll be able to capture their attention as opposed to them scrolling on by.
100% agree with that. And yeah, if you're focusing on helping people and creating content that serves some sort of purpose, then it's going to get people's attention. And I don't think there's a specific type of content that lends itself well to short form video over any others. I think now's a great time to be passionate about any specific thing, because there's an audience for it. There's an audience for people throwing rocks into rivers. There's an audience for, knitting. There's an audience for just decorating cupcakes. I think anything that you're really passionate about, you could make a cool channel about it. And other people who are interested in that can find you. And that's a cool thing.
Yeah, I follow this one brand where they do like these short form videos about them building like tiny homes. And I'm like, I don't know why I care so much, but I just do because it looks awesome. But let's go deeper into tactics here. And one question I have is pretty obvious, how do you get more views and engagement? But then piggybacking on that, which is something I know that you do, how do you get paid for this stuff? So how are you landing brand deals with as someone who's kind of relatively new to this? So two questions at once: how are we getting more engagement and views? And then how do we get paid for this as well?
Yeah. How do you get views? And then how do you get brand deals? I'm going to say that I have sort of combined these two things. So one of the cool things about TikTok, I don't think this is an option on Instagram, but they have Spark ads, which means that you post something on your own page as you, and then a brand can sponsor it on the back end. So it'll go as a sponsored ad, but it appears really organically and it's showing as your account. They can click in, go to your account through this ad. So it's kind of a win-win for the brand and for you, because people want things that are authentic. If it looks like an ad, people are usually swiping away. So for the brand, it gives something that's it seems very native to the platform. And they're just working directly through you as the influencer or content creator, I should say. And then for you, as the content creator, you get a greater reach without having to use your own dollars behind it. And one thing I've noticed is people don't care as much about followers anymore. They really care about your niche, your topic, your influence, or your ability to create content. So I was fortunate enough to sort of get a really advantageous brand deal kind of early on, where I was talking about, the tools that I use for entrepreneurship. And that topic was really resonating with people who are interested in entrepreneurship. So I was just kind of reviewing and showing authentically how I use certain tools within my business. And one of those was Honeybook, which I use as my CRM and, project management tool for my business. And I made probably, I don't know, I made a bunch of videos for them, and like they weren't working for all these different reasons. And I almost gave up, and I was like, this is a waste of time. And then I finally, since I had been trying to say my message so many times, and this was before I was good at creating anything, I was very new to it. So I made all these long videos, these videos that use songs that I couldn't use. This one video got cut off and they were like, can you remake it? So finally, I just made this really short and sweet video because I was fed up, and I just went, here's how I use Honeybook. It's the best. And I just like made this thing. And that is the video that now has 22 million views or whatever it is. Now that was over like the span of a year, I think, that it took to get to that point. But they've just continued to show that to people. They've continued to push that ad, and it's helped in me getting consistent views to my page. And so that element of it is like the reach component, right? But you're also talking about like, so that's how you get views. That's one way to get views besides just organically getting views. And to me, I think that's better, because virality is to me is almost pointless, because it's so haphazard. If you can get it, you get in front of an audience, but it's an audience of completely random people who you don't know if they're your target audience or not. It's usually really, really broad. That's not usually your evergreen content that will go viral. And so, you're not going to get a lot of retention from that, versus if you do it with a brand deal where it's something that authentically makes sense and the partnership makes sense, they're showing it to other business owners and entrepreneurs, like people who are in my target audience. And then those people were interested in that content. And then when they look at my profile, they see more of that content. So there's a high retention rate where people would then, follow me. So it got me reach and retention, which is what I'm always talking about with people, because some of my really good evergreen content doesn't get a lot of reach, but it has really good retention with the people who see it. So it's all about the balance of getting both. And just another kind of related story. So my husband, he went viral, and he, on his regular page, he had a camera watching a nest of birds hatching. And it was really cute, and they were hatching, and he did it for his nephew. But then one night, a fox came and snatched some of the baby birds out of the nest. And so it was just a really big kind of plot twist in the video. And so the video went completely viral organically, got like almost 1 million views. And he did get like 1,000 followers out of it. But then as he continued to post kind of inconsistently or other different topics over time, he lost some followers. He never gained any more than that. People, it was just kind of random. So I think you can get that reach, but I think you need that retention, or the reach doesn't matter.
What happened to the birds?
The birds got snatched by the fox. That's
okay. That's how it is. Okay,
they didn't come back. Yeah.
All right, I will not show this one to my kids then.
But, yeah, I know it needed a trigger warning. But, honestly.
Yeah. But no, I think what you're saying is brilliant, because that essentially, again, I keep on going back to nano learning content. If you're creating content that educates your audience, and you're talking about Honeybook or the script or whatever tool, you can either A, show that to them and say, hey, I'd love to partner with you, or B, they might just discover it because you're hashtagging, right? So instead of, just reaching out blindly trying to get paid deals, start with stuff you actually use, right? Look at the apps on your phone, on your computer, the tools all around you, make a how-to video about that stuff. And then from there, you can authentically speak to it, which brands appreciate. And I love the fact how you're saying, like, look, you don't need a big following. You are the talent. You're not the marketing channel. Right. And if they have this deficit you can fill with this educational content, boom, it's a perfect match, right? So just the more you create, the more examples you have, and the better chance you have to hit. And HoneyBook, I work with them as well. They're a great brand, and the more of these HoneyBooks you can find, the more people you'll attract to. Because when you start having like hashtag ad in your post, so and so forth, people see that stuff and like, oh, this person's been trusted before by someone to create content. I will pay them as well. And the last thing I'll say is those Spark ads from TikTok. I would love to see that on LinkedIn. I'm going to reach out to my creator manager and just see if we can somehow at least get a conversation around that, because there are so many amazing creators on this platform with a very specific audience and an audience that makes a decent amount of money in many cases. That I think it would be amazing to at least try that out, and I'll volunteer to be a guinea pig for it because I think this makes sense. So I'm glad that you brought that up. But let's talk about something else, because again, I look at your content and I know you personally, so I know who you are as an individual. But I see sometimes people are just like talking junk to you. Like you'll say things like, "Hey everyone, here's how you run a business," and someone said something like, "What do you know about running a business?" I'm like, "Dude, she just said it in the video. Like, why? Where are you so confused in regards to her skills or background?" But how do you deal with the negative feedback that you get from some of your videos?
Yeah, that's a good question because I wish negativity didn't take up such a spot in our brains so easily. I think it's really easy to let it do that. So I think if I ever got huge, I would have to hire someone to manage my comments because I think, it could get out of hand. It really could. And when you're the brand, it's very personal. It is very personal. But I think also just knowing that there's always going to be trolls and nobody's bothering people who aren't putting themselves out there or who, it's never like these amazing people that you admire who are being trolls. It's always someone with like no face, no username, and like two videos that aren't original. You know what I mean? It's always some weird person who you're just like, okay, like you just have a lot of time to be negative all day and you've probably got your own things going on. So I try not to take any of it to heart. And then some of it does make good content. Some of it really does. Like I think, you have to be careful with clapback content, but sometimes I use it to make a point. And so if it is about business, I think you've seen some of these where it's like, um, somebody said something about like, why does Gen Z just want to make a quick buck and like they don't want to be doctors or engineers anymore or something? And I made a whole video about how like, why would we not want to, work less, enjoy our lives more, and still make a living, and if you're not into that, maybe you just thought it was never possible for you. And that's why you're resentful now that people are going for that, something along those lines. Just take it and make more content because remember, at the end of the day, if you have to print it out, put it on your wall, or make it your phone background, content, like just as much content as you can create, the better. Everything is content. Always make it into content. So, just take it and use it.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact where you're saying like, "Hey, I'm sorry, but sorry that you're a miserable person, but not everyone else wants to feel that way, and here's what it is," and you're making the best out of it. And I think even by acknowledging the negative feedback and then replying to it, people who've also had that same experience can see themselves in you and feel empowered that that you're willing to step up and say like, "Hey, dude, like, I will reply to this in a constructive way to your destructive content or comment and make something out of it." So I love that. And Rochelle's asking just for some feedback here. Can you clarify the statement that you're the talent versus a marketing channel? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a content creator, you make content, right? You make videos informing a specific audience. But as an influencer, you're essentially a marketing channel. They want to know how many followers you have because you are supposed to spread the word to your audience, and that's part of your job. But if you think about it, like a lot of regular brands, they have an internal content creation team. They make videos or they hire someone to make videos. You're doing that job for them because you're saying, I will make the videos, I will star in them, so on and so forth. So you're a content creator, you're not a channel. And as Sarah was saying, they can then use this stuff in paid ads. And normally, when I'm negotiating any kind of content deal, they'll say, do we have ad rights to this too? And yes, normally you charge more for that, but that's why they don't care if you have 4 followers or 40,000 or more, because they can distribute their content, through other channels, which actually makes a lot more sense because it's more strategic.
Hmm.
So one thing, Amir was chiming in here. She's saying, "I love the comments on not focusing on the virality or followers. So going viral, and getting followers. Our LinkedIn Learning members care more about the substance of message over the number of followers their instructor or creator has, which is great because it democratizes access for experts to reach an audience, regardless of how many followers they have, which I love. Engagement can inform the value of the content and your audience needs pain points. So yeah, I love that. Shelby's chiming in here. She works with someone who does a great job of replying to people who are maybe being rude or definitely being rude in this case. And the way they respond is kind of hilarious. So Shelby, feel free to add those comments later because I think that would help all of us. And I'm not immune to it either. Like people do like drive-by comments, like, hey, you're kind of stupid. I'm like, okay, dude, like, really? You had 4 seconds, and that's the best thing you could think of to do with it is to insult some random dude. And I don't feel sorry for those people, but I'm just glad I'm not them because it seems like a miserable way to live in general. But Sarah, just on your end, because we're getting to the top of the call here, what are you excited about doing over the next 3 to 6 months with your content, with any deals you have, with any courses? Like, what are you really looking forward to in regards to some next steps?
Ooh, that's a great question. I tend to only think about things in terms of like 3 months at a time, right? These days, I'm kind of like, okay, this is my goal for this quarter and this month and this quarter and this month. And so I can't even tell you where my content will be like in 6 months. But what I always tell people is like, I think people think it's like an overnight success kind of thing. It's all or nothing with social media. And I just really think it's more about the slow build because I'm at like 62,000 followers now on TikTok. And it was just like such a slow build to get there. And it was just like, oh, wow, 10. Oh my gosh. Like, and then it was like 50. And I was like, I would have been happy with that. And now I'm like, okay, well, 100. Okay. And I'm going to hit that probably next year. It's a very steady rate of slow growth kind of. And so I think the thing I try to remember is like each follower is like a whole person, and that's really exciting. And so I try to follow back certain like small business owners and people like that, and engage with them and get to know them. And then when I do that, you do build real relationships. And since everything's still virtual, and definitely for me, I'm still working completely virtually. Like that's my networking, that's my community, and so I think that's the thing I'm the most excited for is like the people that you end up becoming, friends with, and then you're rooting for them on their journey, like kind of like us, we didn't know each other at all. And then you meet online and then you're like rooting them on. You're like, that's awesome. So I think that's the thing I'm the most excited for.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're saying I plan 3 months in advance, especially with your content, because your content should be informed by the feedback you're getting from your audience.
Mm,
And if you don't have that feedback, you can't plan a year in advance because things might change. They might want an online community. They might want a course. They might want an SMS-based, communication forum. So I think that's smart because it's long enough to accomplish something meaningful, but it's not so long that you're locked into one way of thinking. And we call those OKRs, your objectives and key results, and those are normally 90-day sprints. So I think that's super
mm.
bright. Um, One thing that I want to ask, because this is something that's debatable. Your kids. I think you have one right now.
Yeah.
Do you feel comfortable putting your son?
Yeah. Son.
Yes. Okay. Do you ever put your son on camera? Why or why not? I'm just curious.
Oh, that's a great question because I have thought about that a lot. So every once in a while, most of my videos are just talking, but then I also like to mix in some with B-roll or some that are like a quote with, B-roll or just like a bunch of clips that I'm like showing and making a point, right? And I have included my son, but strategically, it's been really sparingly. And in almost all of the clips, you really can't see his face. So it'll be like he's a toddler. It'll be like him waddling across the room or the back of his head in the stroller. And that was intentional, right? Because I haven't decided 100% how I feel about it. I think I definitely lean towards the side of like, he can't make a choice of whether or not he wants to be on the internet, and the internet can be so permanent. And this is kind of my channel. It's about me. I don't really show much of my husband. I don't really show much of my kid. And for me, especially because it's more of a professional channel, I don't think I need to. So I really don't. I err on the more protective side. But then if I was like a mommy blogger, I would, so I think it also depends on the channel that you, or, the type of content you're doing. If it's mom content, then, maybe it would make sense. But for me, no.
Yeah, I was like that originally too. And lately I've been doing a bit more with my
Mhm.
kids. And this is like totally real and staged at the same time. My wife is out of town for the next day and a half. So I have all four of my kids by myself, which is a challenge because the oldest one's 6, the youngest is 8 months. And I'm going to, when I drop them off at daycare tomorrow, I told the teacher, I'm like, can you get a video of me walking down the street with four kids? Because I want to use that for my social media. So it's totally a flex, but it's also real life because, I mean, if you got four kids, you got to use them for something, right? And it's going to be content. But I
Yeah.
like to show people that, hey, even if you do have, I don't want to call these constraints, I'll call them responsibilities. You can still create video content. You still can run a business. You still can go to the gym, which I'm also going to do tomorrow. You just have to figure out what you want to say no to and remove some things. But you don't have to give everything up because you have these other things that are going on in your life.
Hmm.
And I think I can represent that well through content, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, and actually, now that you say that, I think that is really important too, because for me, like I also like to show like, it's a huge part of your life, right? You can't just completely hide it. That's why I've snuck him into some of my videos. And one of my best, I don't know if it's best performing, but one of my popular posts on LinkedIn was a photo of the professional headshot of me, and then a behind the scenes of taking the photo of the headshot, and it's me like from here up looking put together, and then my son in the bouncer like right next to me, like blurry because he's
Mhm.
bouncing up and down, and me, I'm in like leggings and slippers, waist down, and it was very real. And I think there's a lot of room for that because authenticity is so key nowadays. It's like you don't have to hide whole parts of yourself to be professional.
Yeah. Yeah. And I want to do ask one question before we take off, which is where can people find you? How can you help other people? But one more thing on the whole kids in the video thing. You don't actually have to have your kids in the video to get credit for having kids. Because I see you sometimes you're like, now I'm getting dinner ready for my son, or now I'm cleaning this up, so it's like, just get credit for it because it takes up a lot of your time. But you don't have to invade their privacy either at the same time.
I love that
But
they
yeah,
get
so
credit
Sarah,
for
like,
it.
yeah, you should. So Sarah, you're doing some amazing work. You're helping other brands with their content and their strategy. Can you give us some information about that, first of all, and then second of all, where can we follow you to learn more about that as well as you in general?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think on everything, I'm just Sarah Casterline Design or Sarah Casterline. So TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then sarahcasterline.com to see any of my design work and things like that. And so they could probably work with me one of two ways. I do design and marketing, email marketing, website design, social media, brand design, all of that. That's my bread and butter. That's how I started. And then I have my program where I work with small business owners, and I just help them kind of simplify and make content creation manageable and help them, have their social media do more for them in terms of sales and their own community building. So that's my brand to blow up program.
Love the name and a big fan of your work. I've been able to watch you continue ascending over the past few years. It's great to see. And thanks for joining us today and sharing that experience. So everyone, if you have any more questions for me or for Sarah, drop them in the comments. We'll pay attention here. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. But Sarah, thanks again for attending. It's been wonderful chatting with you. Thank you.
Thanks so much. This was so much fun.